A very good morning and a warm welcome to one and all present over here, teachers. Apologies for a delayed start. Came a little late to Bangalore. Thank you so much. It was first of all, before starting the session today, I would like to humbly, wholeheartedly thank all the leaders and the principals who had attended the event, Super School Leadership Workshop, more like a conclave. Conclave 2025, the Telangana chapter happened at T Hub yesterday. I would like to thank the Hyderabad School Sahodaya complexes for organizing this, and in collaboration with the HSSC, Hyderabad Sahodaya School Complex. It was great interacting with around 75 to 80 principals on leadership in AI era. We had a set of panel discussion. We had Padma Shri Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy sir, and we even had Dashim Geeta Bhaskar ma'am, an expert in art integration. So thank you so much to all the delegates, and thank you so much to all the teachers, coordinators, vice principals, and the principals who had participated in the event. And right after Hyderabad, back in Bangalore, and the Super Sunday workshop. So I would like to thank all the people if you're part of the session. Thank you so much for joining for SSL 2025. The next SSL 2025, the Karnataka chapter will happen on September 20. There are some discussions to finalize the location. And October 17 in Chennai. I'm in collaboration with few Sahodaya and CBSE bodies to discuss on when it will happen in different states. Hope it happens very soon. And it's quite an interesting and a different kind of an event for leadership. And CS GEMS exclusively for computer science teachers is anyways happening on September 13 here in Chennai, and Kerala, it is getting planned. Let's quickly begin with the day today. Teachers, it's going to be quite interesting. Today's topic is one of the most, I would say, awaited topics for me. I was waiting for, to do something like this. The art of convincing, the psychology of convincing. Convincing is considered to be sometimes a negative perspective, sometimes, it is really important. Some of the convincing attributes that we do begins from the family. Some of them you take lot of efforts to convince someone, but you can never do that. For example, convincing your mother-in-law or your father-in-law that you are the best daughter-in-law or son-in-law can never happen. But you keep trying it, you keep trying. Sometimes it's like, why should I even convince them? This is my life and I'm going to live like this. Why should I even care about them or something like that? So convincing is part of our day-to-day activities and day-to-day habits, I would say, not even activities. It comes under habits. Out of all the convincing things that we do across to the other people, what really stands out is the ability of a person to convince themselves to do a certain activity. In spite of the COVID pandemic, it was very difficult for the teachers to convince themselves that online classes will work, and you did that. Of course, the principals or the people who led this whole program initiative would have taken quite an effort to convince you, and that's another convincing. But end of the day, as a person, as an individual, as a teacher, it really is important for yourself or ourselves to convince ourselves. That's where metacognition comes into picture, but the topic is not that today. The psychology of convincing is very important for us to understand, because once we understand this, we'll clearly know when to speak, what to speak, how to speak, and the most important, why to even speak. So this arrangement of thought process plays an important role in convincing someone. I would like to dedicate this session literally, and if at all I'm getting this idea of doing this session, it's purely because of one of my school teachers called as Sudhakar sir. Sudhakar sir was the one who actually, taught me physics and mathematics. And whenever he used to teach us the theorems, basically, he'll not directly say that, this is hence proved. He'll write a step and he'll say, is that convincing enough? A teacher asking the students, giving an authority to the students, and ensuring that it's convincing. Now, theorems and postulates, then rules and laws, these are some of the words that we will be discussing in the session today. However, a teacher's ability to put the students in the spot and asking them, is this convincing enough? The story of World War One, the reason is for this. Is this convincing enough? That actually puts the students in an authoritative position, and the learning curve gets actually better. That's what we're going to talk about. So convincing skill is an important attribute that everybody has, but not really hyped to the level it is actually supposed to. Let's quickly start and understand what exactly it is. I would like to warmly welcome each and every individual over here, educator, principal, the family members of teachers who are watching this, to have consistently joined. We are there at Super Sunday Workshop Series, session number 128. Thank you for joining, and let's quickly begin. The psychology of convincing education perspectives. Let's look at the small. What is convincing? From the moment we wake up in the morning, convincing begins. At home, a parent convinces a sleepy child to get ready for school. I was not convinced. I was given nicely. Early morning, sleeping still. At the breakfast table, someone convinces the little one to eat an extra spoon of vegetables. Yeah, I think in my days, there was no convincing required. Just take and stuff it in, something like that. On the way to the school, a teenager convinces their parent to let them use the phone just 5 more minutes. I think you have to agree with that. Everybody's doing that. This is purely written because I was traveling with a principal and a teenage son of the principal, and I was there in the car. I was going to train, and the son was giving his best of his ability to convince his father, give me 5 more minutes the phone. I think it's relatable. When we reach school, it doesn't stop. Teachers convince students that today's math topic is interesting and not as tough as it looks. You say, no, it's actually very easy. Look at this, something like that. Principals convince teachers to try out a new strategy. Yeah. Parents need convincing that playtime is as important as study time, and teachers have their personal life. Now, this is a very, I would say, deep statement, but written in one line. I think the job of a teacher back in those days used to be called as, teaching at the school and talking to the students. But the definition slightly got changed. Now the teacher's job is to convince the parents that I'm teaching your son. I don't know if you know that. If you understand the mean, it's like I think it's relatable. Step outside the school and the cycle continues. We convince neighbors to keep the surroundings clean, friends to join us for a walk, shopkeepers to avoid plastic bags, colleagues to try a better way of working, and whatnot. This keeps on happening, and convincing is not a rare art. It is a most everyday skill of life. The only difference is sometimes we notice it, and most times we just ignore it. Now, ignore it in the sense we just don't consider that. Okay. Let's quickly. I think I hope my voice is audible, teachers. If it's not, do let me know. I think some of you are mentioning I'm delivered during exactly the IT department came into picture. Yeah, that's right. Audible, clear. That's great. Let's go forward. Now comes psychology of convincing, very important aspect. Now, why do we even get into all these aspects? Psychology of convincing. Before going to that particular part of psychology of convincing, it is important for us to understand one very small, ideology. Now, this is again psychology. It's not something from Sadhguru point of view. But anyways, now whenever somebody is trying to convince someone else, like if you are trying to convince someone else, and if that matter is getting convinced, I mean, some people are like, really, yes, this is absolutely true. It's working out. If they say that, they are saying that with a wow moment and accepting that, not because you were successful in convincing them, it's because they were already convinced about it. They were just not realizing it. I'll repeat it. They were already convinced about it, but not realizing it. I'll give you another analogy and a picture to understand. Suppose when we read a self-help book, let's understand psychology of money. That's a famous book. There is like habits of effective people or atomic habits of effective people. Now you read the book. There is another book, The Rich Dad and Poor Dad, and there is another book, blah blah blah. So when you talk about these books and when you read them, literally when you read them, you get a wow moment and you're like, exactly, this point is absolutely right. Now, when you go with that wow moment, exactly, this point is absolutely right. It's not because you came to a realization that this point is true. It's actually because you already knew it somewhere in the past due to some experience. And today, someone else is saying that, and that's kind of relatable. I'll repeat it. I'll repeat it. You already that knew. In fact, most of the self-help book states that, you need to be disciplined. You need to be orderly. You need to be able to manage your time. Do you really think that it has to be written on a book for you to know that? No, you knew it. You just knew it. You wanted validation, and this validation happens through a book which is best selling in the world. And when you look at that, then you're like, absolutely. Most times, especially in 30s and 40s, when we read these books, we get extra happy about it. And when you read the same book in 20s, you'll be like, all these are common sense. I already knew this. In 30s and 40s, it acts like a reminder that, yeah, I knew this and I'm remembering it again so that I follow that in my life. Basically, our memory is going down and books are helping us to remind what we already knew. This is a slight lookout to something called as convincing, psychology of convincing. Now let us get to understand why it is important from brain's perspective. We convince students answering every time we can't use a technique to convince them. No, I have not shared the PPT. Here it comes. Here it comes. Okay, now let's go with the psychology of convincing. Now it'll make sense. Now, when we talk about psychology of convincing teachers, the first point is cognitive bias. Now, whenever we talk about any new information to the children or to the parents, it's important to understand that everybody comes up with their own experiences and a value system. Convincing itself is a part of affective domain. I think everybody knows about it. It's all about knowledge, skills, and attitude. Convincing is an attribute of an attitude. It's something emotional in nature. So when we talk about emotions, these emotions actually make your own value system. These value systems you can't change that easily. That is why a person who believes in something, he cannot change that, especially after attaining an age of 40 or 50. It's very difficult because they've lived with that value system. Now, suddenly, if you go and tell that, you need to change this, the trends have changed. Nuclear family is also good family. Joint family need not be the case all the time. It's difficult for them to digest. It's difficult for them to digest that having a baby after 10 years of marriage is absolutely fine. But for them, it cannot happen that easily. You need to put an extra efforts. This is called as cognitive bias. The human brain is wired from comfort and familiarity based on the past experiences. So, cognitive dissonance theory by Leon Festinger says people feel mental discomfort when new ideas clash with old beliefs. Now, again, this is quite a common sense for us to understand. Yeah, it is obvious. But look at this. There is a guy called as Leon Festinger who has written a book called as Cognitive Dissonance Theory. And after he says that, it is more impactful and convincing. I hope you're able to understand. So the point over here is cognitive bias plays an important role and it's difficult to break it as you practice that regularly. And that's why experienced people, if they are there with a certain value system, it's difficult to convince them. Very difficult to convince them. I'm talking about my father. Convincing provides the bridge. It reduces this discomfort and helps the brain accept new beliefs. So there is a system to go behind. Convincing parents that less homework can improve learning reduces the discomfort of more homework equal to better child. You would have come across parent teachers meeting where parents come and say, Madam, aapka homework is very less. Give more. Now your task is to convince them, no, more homework is not equal to better child. Definitely not. You need to say that. Now that requires a lot of efforts. Convincing. Let's go to the second aspect. The second aspect is called as amygdala and prefrontal cortex. The fight between them or the coordination between them. You remember there are two parts of the brain. This is the prefrontal cortex, right in the beginning, and somewhere right at the center and the back there is something called as limbic system or amygdala. We keep talking about it. They both need to talk with each other. Prefrontal cortex is impulsive. They don't really think. In fact, prefrontal cortex needs to continuously talk to the limbic system, the amygdala. They have to speak to each other. Amygdala gives reasoning, emotional reasoning. Hey, look, don't do that. Wait for some time. This metacognitive skills we talk about, right? This is basically the communication between prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, which is basically amygdala. So amygdala is an emotion center, responds faster than the prefrontal cortex, which is logic center. This means people feel first and think later. That is why people say love is blind. Yeah. Don't you agree with that? Absolutely. Okay. You're able to see the PPT, right? Yeah. This means people feel first and think later. Convincing works when it appeals to both emotion plus logic. Otherwise, the brain rejects the idea. Emotion and logic has to be given equal importance. A student won't try math problem just because it's logical. They need emotional convincing. Something like, I believe you can do this. I hope you're able to understand. So when we talk about convincing, it's a pure function of an attitude, affective domain. Let's go forward and understand the third aspect. Now, this is very interesting with respect to the happy hormones called as dopamine. The brain learns through stories and social proof. So when we have to convince someone, most of you, I'm pretty sure, especially in the primary classes, you'll start having an analogical story. You'll not talk to the students, you should not lie to others. You go about. There was a boy who went to the forest and he started shouting, tiger, tiger, tiger. The villagers came running to save him, and then the boy started laughing, saying that you fooled everyone. He fooled everyone. He was very happy about it. This boy again went to the mountain. He started saying, tiger, 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 and the villagers came running again. And the boy was like, I fooled you again. And he was starting to laugh. He was laughing literally. The third time, an actual tiger came, and the boy started saying, tiger, tiger, tiger. This time, the villagers thought that there is no tiger over there. This boy is simply lying. So let us not go over there. And unfortunately, the boy was affected by tiger. The tiger harmed the boy. Now, here in this particular story, we narrate this to the students, especially in early classes, to tell them, you're not supposed to lie. You're not supposed to lie. You're supposed to be ethical. You're supposed to be loyal. You're supposed to be truthful. We don't say that directly. We use the stories. Why? Because stories emotional in nature. The brain is wired for narratives. Stories trigger dopamine, which improves attention and memory. So this is exactly the reason for which people love the convincing. I mean, people love stories and social proof. There is something called as mirror neurons, make people imitate others when they see social proof. Now there is something called as sensitization, adoption, and adaptation. We'll talk about that right after this, which is completely related to this particular aspect of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons make people imitate others when they see social proof. 10 people are doing some activities. It's quite interesting, so let me also do. There is a circular in the school, something not really appropriate, but nearly out of 100 teachers in the school, 80 people have signed for it and agreed to it. Out of the pressure of social proof, 20 of you, even if you're not convinced, you sign for it. That is where social proof comes into picture. This is one way of convincing, a bad way of convincing, probably by the management, but that happens. Convincing uses these brain mechanisms to embed ideas deeper. A teacher convinces students about honesty by narrating a real story rather than lecturing. So this is with respect to stories and social proof. The next and the penultimate, because convincing builds neural pathways. It's basically with respect to neuroplasticity. You have repetition, reasoning, and reinforcement. When you have to convince someone with some topics, for the students, like sun rises in the east and sets in the west, in itself is a repetitive task. You can tell the children every day in the morning you wake up. Probably you could use the compass that you have in your hand. You can give the compass and see which direction the sun is rising. Now you don't have to put that in the textbook alone. Let them do the activity, and they're going to do that regularly. And when they're going to do that regularly, they'll know, oh yes, sun always rises in the east. See, for us, an adult, it's quite easy to comprehend this. But for a child who is in LKG or UKG, or or first standard, it's very difficult for them to digest the fact that this happens in regularity. For them, understanding east, west, north, south itself is a task. So having a compass and then doing it, so compass becomes an element for them to do an activity repeatedly so that the concept gets reinforced. That is where neuroplasticity comes into picture. Repetition, reasoning, and reinforcement are necessary to strengthen these pathways. New beliefs require new neural connections in the brain. This also comes under adaptation. We'll talk about that. Convincing provides the repeated nudges that transform resistance into acceptance. Like, yeah, I agree. So far I was not at all convinced, but now it is like you're absolutely correct. I completely agree. Something like that. So convincing a child daily that mistakes are okay builds a resilient mindset over time. I really want to tell this. Uh, when the babies are toddlers, they become very naughty. They'll do things that you tell them not to do. And a clinical psychologist told me that it's really difficult to tell the children that they should not do something, but doesn't mean that you can't say it. You just need to tell the after effects of it. You need to tell them not to do it, not once, not twice, as long as it takes for them to stop that. Just because they're not listening for you to the first time, a second time, a third time, doesn't mean you stop it. You need to keep on nudging them, keep on telling them no, no, patiently. You should not find a better method by, some parents go to an extent of hitting the children. Some go to an extent of, punishing them. I'm going to give you punishment if you do this, which is going to put them at the spot of fear. I was really moved with this clinical psychologist. And when I got into understanding of convincing, convincing is an art, and it's beautiful and the most complex. when you try to do that on a child, especially who is 3 to 5 years old. Don't come and tell me that I am able to convince my principal for so and so. It's not a difficult task at all. If you have this ability to convince a child, let not be till 5 or 6 years, even till 12th standard in teenage as well. If you can do that, then you're good at convincing. Convincing an adult to alert and a colleague is not a big deal. Don't be happy about it. Something like that. So convincing a child daily that make mistakes are okay builds a resilient mindset over time. Let's go forward. Because convincing creates motivation, reward pathway. Yes, the brain's dopamine reward system activates when we feel understood and guided. You're like, oh yeah, this is right. Absolutely. So being convinced feels like a small reward. And once you get convinced with something and you do an activity and you get a reward for that, you'll get permanently convinced. It's like I use this technique on my husband or wife to do something so that they feel loved. Oh wow, it's working. Let me try this regularly. Then practice makes a man perfect. That becomes a habit. One of those techniques is like Super Sunday workshop. I'm like, I got beautiful reward in the first session stating that the session is good, which helped me go with the second session, which helped me go with the third session, fourth session. Some of the reward system are like, I got a job because of your Super Sunday workshop. I really got to understand how a book has to be written. Your books are extremely good. These are all reward systems which helps a person to continue pursuing the things that they were always pursuing, for which you have the positive reward system. So do everything that makes sure that there is a positive reward system which basically releases happy hormones like dopamine, oxytocins, and that helps the students to get affectionate towards the task that they do. Then you don't have to convince much. When a teacher convinces students they're improving, the students feel rewarded and works harder. You remember psychology of praise, incentivization on the process and not the product. That's the point over here. Let's go forward and understand. Yeah, so these are the 5 important areas for us to understand what is psychology of convincing. Even if you leave the session right now, it is complete. However, the after effects of it, how to do that, we'll talk about it right now. First is cognitive biases. Human brain is strong. It's very difficult to break it. Mother-in-law, daughter-in-law example. Yeah. Next is emotion before logical. It's like amygdala responds faster than the prefrontal. The example of love at first sight. Love is blind. Something like that. Stories and social proof. It's all about triggering dopamine. The example of a child shouting tiger, tiger, tiger. That one over here. Next is neuroplasticity, repetition, reasoning, and reinforcement. Convincing students at an early age, you keep repeating things. That's the next example. And the fifth one, because convincing creates motivation, it's like you did something, you get rewarded for it. A reward system that we talk about. That's the fifth one. That's it. Psychology of convincing is this. So you would have already understood that this is very, very important. Convincing is just not a simple activity that you do. It's important to make sure that every action that you take, every statement that you make has a reason behind it. And that reason is the driving factor of your dialogues towards convincing someone. So if the reasoning is strong, then convincing can easily happen. So let's go forward. The moment I reassure that making mistakes is not bad, but it is a way we can learn more. My students are convinced and nowadays try to answer without fear of being pointed out that you're wrong. You're right, Sunita ma'am. Oh, reward system is by stars and smile as well. Shobna ma'am, that's absolutely right. Those are all methodologies. Convincing my students to listen to my topic. Okay. Triveni ma'am, is that topic anything related to chemistry? Then it is very difficult to convince. Even difficult concepts can many times be explained through acronyms, stories, and mnemonics. Students, in fact, enjoy them a lot. Yeah, that's another way of convincing. Yeah. Now comes the most important, and this is the best part actually. I really like this: sensitization, adoption, and adaptation. So, what really happens is anytime when there is a sudden change happening in our regular system of working, uh, it's all about discomfort. Let's take the example of COVID. The moment pandemic hit and people started telling that the schools are supposed to be shut down, it was very difficult to digest. That is a scenario. Very difficult to digest. Principals did not know what to do. Teachers were really clueless. You're all sitting in the home, looking at the same family members. 1 week chalega, 2 week chalega, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Oh my God. It was nearly a month where people came to a realization that you can't see your own family members continuously for five weeks. And that's why you need office. You can't stay at home. Just imagine the plight of a homemaker if you don't go to a job, looking at the same guy, all the time. It's impossible. So anyways, Now, this is the situation. Now, there is a rule stating that we can't be like this. Let us try to do something about it. Let us try to have online classes. Now, online classes, we do not know computers. Let's take the help of computer science teachers. Let's take the help of Mr. Vasudevan. He keeps conducting free workshop during the pandemic. Let's understand what they're trying to tell. This is called as sensitization. Sensitization is the step taken by a leader generally, and the leader can be you as well, to take an action and convincing yourself first that this might work or this will work. Now, once you get into sensitization mode, the next is few people will agree with you and they'll try to adopt it. So some teachers were convinced that yes, ma'am, you're right, let us try. Some teachers, they were not at all convinced. They did not like the principal's initiative. They were very much in love with their family and they did not want to work, something like that. And some people, when they started working, that comes under the face of adoption. So sensitization by the leader, followers get into adoption, and once adoption starts happening, there are case studies which convinces the other people and themselves that this is actually working. That is called as adoption. So sensitization leads to adoption. Adoption leads to impact. And once impact happens to the other people, they also adapt to it. I'll repeat it. They also adapt to it. And that's why it's called as adaptation. It's just not in schools, educators. It's just not in schools, even in daily life, or even if I have to come up with a movement. In India, there is huge corruption. I need to talk about it. I need to sensitize the audience that there is a lot of corruption. Think about it. So this faces sensitization, and then suddenly, some people will follow certain protests, and they'll get adopting to it, and then multiple people get impacted, inspired, and then adaptation happens. If the context of this complete process is not powerful enough, any initiative goes to waste. So convincing indirectly has got three steps of sensitization, adoption, and adaptation. Very important and a very powerful statement, but we'll not get into the details of that. Why is convincing so important in a school setup? Very simple. Knowledge alone is not enough. Knowledge is not enough. It's important to have emotions connected. For example, teachers don't deliver information. They need to convince students that learning is useful. Without convincing, lessons remain facts. With convincing, they become beliefs. I hope you're able to understand the trust factor, the belief system. A teacher can explain algebra, but unless students are convinced it's worth learning, they won't engage. There are many teachers who are there in this audience right now telling that what is the point of studying trigonometry in the school? I'm not using it anywhere. That means you are not convinced enough, or you have not convinced yourself. It's important. If you have been convinced, then this statement will not come. So knowledge alone is not enough. We need to touch the belief system of the students, because human beings can resist change. Second reason, like our natural instinct is to stay in comfort zones. Teachers convincing us to overcome the resistance to new methods, ideas, and behavior. Parents may resist activity-based learning. You're asking our children to do a lot of project work. It's very difficult to purchase the materials. Convincing makes them trust the new approach. So it's important to convince them, because convincing builds trust and relationships. Convincing isn't about winning arguments, it's about building trust much deeper. Strong relationship between teachers, students, and parents come from gentle, consistent convincing. I'll repeat it. Consistent convincing. It's not a one day process, it's a regularity. So, see, a child studies not because of fear, but because they convince their teachers believe in them. So that's with respect to trust and relationship. And now, next is because education is about shaping beliefs, not just marks. Students don't just need knowledge, they need conviction, beliefs in values like honesty, hard work, and resilience. Convincing a child that failure is feedback is more powerful than just telling them, don't worry. Yeah, you need to tell them failure is feedback. It's a pathway to success. Not like don't worry. This also came on psychology of praise. Finally, convincing creates lasting change. Forcing creates compliance. Convincing creates conviction. A community follows cleanliness rules not because of fines, but because they're convinced improves life. That's it. If at all anything happens out of fear, I'll tell you teachers. I'll tell you teachers, it's not long lasting. It's not at all sustainable. Anything that happens out of respect, anything that happens out of the impact and inspiration, that that is the most sustainable things. So anyways, punishment is not the right thing to do, is the point that I'm trying to convey. This is with respect to the school setup. So con where is it? So sorry. So, convincing means changing the way someone thinks or believes by presenting reasons, logic, trust, and emotions in a way that makes sense to them. Sense to them. So, it's important for you to understand them. So, empathy comes into picture. Convincing is not forcing, convincing is not manipulation, convincing is not persuasion. Persuasion is a polite way, a small and a gradual way of convincing someone. It leads to that. Manipulation also leads to convincing. Forcing also leads to convincing, but that's actually not convincing. So convincing is not about winning an argument, it's about winning trust. That's it. That's it. So this is with respect to convincing teachers. I would like to quickly go with some formats of convincing. This slide was supposed to be a little later over there, but it came over here. Yeah. So yeah, here it is. First of all, persuasion. These are some of the words that confuse people. Influencing someone's action or decision, often using emotions. That's persuasion. A teacher persuades a shy student to join the school play by "you'll enjoy it and your friends will cheer for you." Emotion. Negotiation is reaching an agreement through discussion and compromise. 1 hour of phone only if you finish your homework first. A condition, you're negotiating. Influence, shaping someone's thoughts or behavior, often indirectly. So a student starts reading books simply because they see their teacher always reading. You know that, right? The learning happens not by instruction but by inspiration. So there was this topic called as the silent curriculum. You remember? The attitude of a child is not a function of what the teacher teaches in the class or what she speaks. It is more about what she behaves as. The silent curriculum. It was a very good topic. I think you all remember that. Yeah. So that's with respect to influence. Motivation, inspiring someone to act willingly. A sports coach motivates students to practice harder before a big match. Persuasion through authority. Authority. Just because your principal, like it's like a principal says, research shows project based learning works. And the teacher listens because of their authority. It's like, ma'am must be 100% correct. Sir must be 100% correct. Let me listen to them. So through credibility and authority, sometimes it is like this also. Just because this lady is saying, do you really think I'm going to do? Something like that. There is always certain elements in the staff room who behave like this, which brings the charm to the whole system. Yeah, I mean, somewhere I kind of want that to happen. I know it's very difficult for a principal to manage and the colleagues to manage. Like it's kind of toxic in times, but when you look at from a far-sightedness, it's kind of cute. The people behave like that. So sorry for them that they're not able to. So yeah. Anyways, let me not get into that. I'm remembering too many incidents from various schools. Appeal, requesting earnestly or emotionally. A teacher appeals to the students. Let's maintain silence for a minute to respect our guest. An appeal, not order, an appeal. See, nice word, right? Again, it's part of convincing. Then the next 6 words: encouragement, gentle convincing with positivity and support. A parent encourages a child, try again. I know you can solve this puzzle. Encouragement. Reasoning, convincing through logic and facts. A science teacher convinces a student about climate change by showing data and experiments. You know that. Persuasion through storytelling, narratives. To convince students about honesty, we told about Tiger. Probably in the later classes, we can talk about Mahatma Gandhi. Coaxing. Coaxing is kind of irritating sometimes. See, soft, repeated attempts to win someone over. You don't want, but you coax. A mother coaxes a toddler to eat by saying, just one more bite for me. There's actually not a good thing to do. Why? Because um, if at all it doesn't go in a positive aspect, it creates a scar among the children. Like they start hating their relationship with the mother because the mother says, for me, mere liye karo, do it for me. No, don't do that. Coaxing is not right. In fact, coaxing is predominantly done by children of opposite gender to convince each other that they're made for each other. This happens in 11th and 12th. I've seen so many students coming in talking about coaxing to a large extent. Not a good way of convincing. Counseling, convincing through listening, empathy, and guidance. A school counselor convinces a worried student that exam stress can be managed with simple techniques. A good point. Advocacy, speaking on behalf of an idea or person. A teacher advocates for more library hours to the school management. One teacher goes and tells that, madam, increase the PT period. Principal is like, what subject you teach? I teach science. Then why are you speaking about it? No, ma'am, PT sir is finding it difficult to come and talk to you. Principal is like, doesn't he have mouth? He will come and talk to me. You just get lost. Something like that. Advocacy is very important. You need to voice out for others. You can't keep quiet when some injustice is happening in front of you, especially in the teaching field. It's very important to tell that. Uh, Justice, when it is not provided in front of you, it's important for you to stand up for it. Yeah, by following the law. That's it. That's very important. So advocacy plays an important role in a person's life. We'll have a separate topic on advocacy one day. Beautiful topic. So yeah, I hope you got the picture. Finally, coming to the conclusion, we would have come across these words in our textbooks. The first one is theorems and postulates. Yeah, laws and rules. So basically, what are these? Postulate is something that is not at all convincing, but you assume it is true. For example, accepted truth without proof. It's there. It happens. Like assumption, a line can be drawn between 2 points. Nobody can prove that. It can be drawn between 2 points. A line can be drawn. Do you require a proof for that? No. That's called as a postulate. Now, these postulates play an important role to convince someone with a complex theorem. So, theorem is something that you need to prove. And for that, you can use the postulates. So, statement proved logically, deduction from postulates to theorems. And one of them is Pythagoras theorem. Pythagoras theorem says that the square of the sum of the square of two sides is equal to the area of the sum of the area of the squares of the two sides in a right angle triangle is equal to the area of the square of the hypotenuse, something like that. You're like, why should I even agree to that? Why should I get convinced with that? Then you go with the proof, and there is hence proved. For that, you use the postulates, etc., etc. So that's where Pythagoras theorem comes into picture. What is a law? Universal truth of nature. Observation, experiment, and derivation, like Newton's law, sun rises in the east, Ohm's law, all these are law. You can't change it, which exists in nature. Postulate is an assumption. Law is in nature. Law is more of an observation, not something pre-written that you can observe. It's more of a, what is rule? Instruction for order or operation. Rule, even if it is not convincing, even if it is not a law, even if it is not a postulate or a theorem, still you have to follow that. It's human made convention. For example, Bodmer's rule. It's a convention. Traffic rules, grammar rules. It's a convention, rule. It's not a postulate. Human made this. I hope you're able to understand. So postulate, theorem, law, and rule requires a different level of convincing, and that's how it is right now. So what should a teacher do to convince? Start with empathy, mirror neurons work. Listen first, acknowledge feelings with children. I understand this looks difficult, but let's break it step by step. The cognitive bias, you remember? The brain mirrors emotions, empathy lowers resistance. Next is use stories and analogies. Brain loves narratives. If somebody is starting a story, you understand that they are starting to attempt to convince you of something that you were not convinced initially. Yeah. Connect abstract concepts to relatable concepts, movies, games, sports, explaining gravity using dropping a cricket ball versus a feather. Yeah, you can do that. Stories activate multiple brain regions, making learning sticky, sustainable. Chunk and simplify. Cognitive load theory. You can't put a very big theory in one session. So in fact, every Super Sunday workshop is a cognitive load. We'll put so much of information in one day that you're like, oh my God, this is too much. This fellow's talking so much. However, we believe that one small part of it also, if you understand, you can explore huge in that area. I think so. Break lessons into small, doable parts. Instead of a full math problem, start with one step at a time. The brain rejects overload. Convincing happens when tasks feel doable. Next, psychology. Reinforce with positive feedback. It's dopamine boost. I like the way you tried a different method. Wow, that's fantastic. You're appreciating the efforts. Dopamine releases, increase motivation and acceptance. What's next? Invite participation. I love this. I love this. Ask questions, encourage choice. That means which example should we solve first? You're giving a choice on the screen. You're like, can we do this, students? And the children are excited. Why? Because the brain values what it chooses. Ownership builds buy-in. Come on, come on, come on. Why is the battery running low? Excuse me, teachers. Okay, I'm so sorry. Second is invite participation, ownership effect, which I predominantly do a large extent. Repeat with variation. Neural pathways strengthen. Repeat the same information with different modulation, with different dialogues, something like that. So repetition wise the brain, variation prevents boredom. Yeah, that's with respect to six of them. And finally, the most important, show genuine consistency. trust formation, keep promises, be fair in rules. A trusted teacher's words are more convincing than mere authority. That is the reason, even if the parents come and tell you to do something, you know, an advice or something like that, you will not listen. You will not. If the same advice is given by some man with a turban and a white cloth called a Sadguru and says that in a YouTube channel, you are like convinced. Oh, oh, that's what your parents said. You didn't listen to them then. Now you're happy about it. Why? Because you got that genuine consistency from that source of information and not from your parents, probably, or that repeated information kind of became toxic to you, something like that. But the point over here is a trusted teacher's words are more convincing than mere authority. So it's very, very important to be aware about the fact that the role of a teacher is the most important in getting into the zone of getting convinced. It is a lifelong learning. If today I'm getting convinced only after 1 hour of conversation with me for the smallest of topic, it's because my teachers trained me like that. I tried my level best to convince my team members for using certain words in our textbook. I'm like, let us not use this word. This is very difficult for a second standard student. But my team members are not convinced. They come up with, they write a book and then we get a feedback. This word is quite of not correct. It's not appropriate. Then I go back to the team members and I'm like, see, we discussed this. I'm so sorry. I'm not in an effective mode to convince, or you were a better person to convince me. So all these attributes of discussions that happen in our day-to-day life plays an important role only because of the teachers who nurtures during our school days. If you think that your convincing system is absolutely fine, it's mainly because of your teachers. So this particular topic is one of the most interesting. If you get into the lot of theories are there. We're not touching about all those things one by one. Probably in future sessions we'll talk about it. Just a simple way of understanding. Anyways, that brings me to the end of the session, teachers. As per our commitment, I'm sharing the presentation right away with you on the chat. Interested people can go through this and probably use it at a place where you can you know so it's going to be anyone with the link. I copied the link and it goes to the Zoom chat. It'll come to the YouTube chat as well right away. And this is the psychology of convincing education perspectives. And here we go. Happy Teachers Day to one and all. Okay. I hope you're able to see this. Did I put that properly? I think so. I'm sorry. Check that. Great, it's shared. Thank you so much, teachers. Great interacting with one and all. I hope I'm able to convince you enough that Super Sunday workshops are really worth it. I hope I'm able to convince you enough that Super Teacher as an organization is a well-researched organization driven by content and not by operations and sales. I hope I'm able to convince you that Sundays, waking up and listening to Super Sunday workshop is worth having a small load of knowledge for the complete week. Something like that. I hope I'm able to convince your family. I don't think so that's possible. Uh, to allow you to switch on the YouTube and take out your notebooks on a Sunday. I'm really sorry for that. I can't convince. Apologies for that. Thank you so much, teachers, for regularly joining on each and every Super Sunday workshop. Gives us a lot of motivation and encouragement and enthusiasm to work on different topics from the education perspective. These initiatives are continued not because of the resilience or the hard work or the perseverance that we people are doing. It's only because a collective effort of all the people, the collective effort of all the people joining consistently. So thank you so much for that. I would like to meet you again in the next Super Sunday workshop with another interesting topic in the education sector. Until then, thank you so much and Jai Hind. Happy Teachers Day to one and all. Yeah, we'll talk about Teachers Day. Next topic is going to be very interesting. Thank you, Pushpa ma'am. Thank you, Seema ma'am. Saubhagya Gauri ma'am. What a name. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ruby ma'am, thank you so much. I really like Hindi Indian names. I mean, not just Hindi, traditional regional names. Very rarely people forget about people. Even my, even I don't think like that. It's very difficult to have simple and beautiful names right now from Indian perspectives. Yeah. Thank you so much. Anandita ma'am, Sunita ma'am, Vidya ma'am, Vijaykumar sir, Shweta ma'am, Hemalata ma'am, you're right. Thank you so much, everyone. Happy Teachers Day to you. Thank you, Arpita ma'am, Mary ma'am, Radhikeshwari ma'am, Smita ma'am, thank you so much. Rupali ma'am, thank you, thank you. I hope the sessions are helping you. Thank you, Ambigai ma'am. Good. Thank you so much, Ruth ma'am. Oh, Archana ma'am, thank you so much. I would like to request all the teachers out there to please pass on this information about Super Sunday workshop. You get the certificate right after the session. After reflection form, you need to answer 10 questions and get 7 corrected. Today, they are little tricky questions. I would request you to be careful. Thank you, Sunanda ma'am, Neeru ma'am, Devasmita ma'am, Soma ma'am. Thank you so much. Sharmila ma'am, you're absolutely right. You have to convince yourself. Happy Teachers Day. Snehal ma'am, thank you. Thank you so much. Lata ma'am, thank you. Thank you, Chaitanya ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ruth ma'am. Oh, Tamanna ma'am, good to see you again over here. Thank you so much. Sarabjit ma'am, good to see you after a very long time. Thank you so much. No, okay. Best part was I want to read Yasmin ma'am. Thank you so much. Best part was I was actually convinced while learning about convincing. Good, good, good. You have a knack of humor. Thank you, Anupama ma'am. Means a lot. Sharmila ma'am, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer ma'am. Thank you, Parna ma'am. Thank you, Archana ma'am. Thank you so much. Oh, fantastic, Swati ma'am. Great, great, great. Wow, exquisite session. Anisha ma'am, English teacher, huh? I'm convinced. Thank you, Seema ma'am. Thank you so much. PPT is there in the chat. To know about further sessions, visit the superteacher.in website. You will get to see the events column. Click on Super Sunday Workshop, and then that's it. You can register. I'll meet you again in the next Super Sunday Workshop with another interesting topic. It's a weekend. Spend time with your family. I would like to meet you again very soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Sashwati ma'am. Thank you, Sunita ma'am. I read that. Absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.